Hello, lovely, and welcome back to Solo and Soaring, the secret podcast series for the 20-hour week solopreneur. So, welcome back. I'm Yasmin. In case you don't remember, we've actually already spent a bit of time together. So, let's get straight into it. We're on episode 4, which I can't quite believe it. I am telling you, I am having so much fun recording these sessions for you because I know that, well, first of all, there's so much value in what I'm sharing. But I also know that there's going to be some things that you hear in every episode that's just going to land for you. You know how sometimes you hear something like 1,000 times, and then there's that one time where it just lands in a very specific way, and it feels like something in your DNA, in your like makeup, just shifts, and you think, oh, I get it. And that's partly my intention. And I have that's a big part of my intention, but I have no idea how that's going to happen, what it is that you're going to hear that's going to have that moment for you. And it could be several moments. But this is really why I wanted to create this podcast series, this secret podcast series, because not everybody gets to hear it. Because I feel so passionately about the business that we're in, right? So let me just take a moment and just really help us to kind of ground ourselves into what we're doing here, right? You're a solopreneur just like me. Here I am sitting in my home and I'm recording this. The kids are at school and I am doing work that I really, really love, right? I get to be creative. I get to work with amazing people. And, for a long time, that wasn't always the case. Like, before I started my business, I was in corporate for 12 years, and I've been doing this business for longer than I was doing corporate, but it hasn't been a smooth path by any stretch of the imagination. And actually, episode 5, that is going to be the next episode, I'm going to talk a lot about the things that have really held me back that, I can't wait to share that with you. You're going to really, really love that episode. And I think you'll really be able to relate to a lot of the things that I talk about. But going back to what we were just saying now, like as solopreneurs, you don't have this vision of like being this big, I don't know, I hate this phrase, but like girl boss or lady boss or boss babe or whatever other weird cringy name there is, right? You're not sitting there thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to have this empire, right? Sometimes I think I'm empire building, but I'm in the empire that I want to build, right? I'm about living my life to the fullest, right? It's so funny. I was thinking this the other day, actually yesterday, when my little one snuggled into me. We were sat down, they'd come home from school, usual thing where I give them something to eat. I have a cup of tea, maybe a custard cream, and one of them will come over and we'll get blankets and we'll snuggle and we'll watch a bit of TV, right? And it was so funny because got onto the like little blanket with him, and I was like, God, this is one of my favorite parts of the day, right? And then I was getting into bed at nighttime. I was reading my book. My husband was next to me, and again, I'm a snuggler. I love to hug, and I was like, oh, this is one of my favorite. This is my favorite part of the day, and then I was like journaling in the morning, and it was just my quiet time with my cup of tea. And I was like going, this is my favorite part of the day. And I went, Yasmin, you have a lot of favorite parts of your day, right? And I absolutely loved it because I went, this is what success means for me. This is absolutely the truth for me. And so maybe you're like me and you're like going, yeah, I just love those snuggles. I want to have that lifestyle that allows me to be able to do this, especially when my kids are still at home, before they all go off and fly the nest fly the nest. This is really important to me. So as solopreneurs, you're probably not thinking, God, I really can't wait to have that massive team. You're probably thinking, oh my God, that's like the last thing I want to do is manage a team. But the reality is that as a solopreneur, you're also wearing all the hats, right? You're wearing all of the hats, trying to get 1,000,001 things done. And my goal, my desire for this podcast series is to show you how you can have a very simple and lucrative business, right? I suppose when I think about my business and what I have primarily focused in on is attracting high value clients, selling premium offers. And if you get a bit squeamish about this and you're like thinking, oh, maybe it feels like money hungry, let's be honest, let's put the cards on the table here. sometimes people get like that. Well, for me, high ticket is anything over 1K, right? That is not that high, right? Somebody else could come along and say, well, high ticket for me is anything above 50K. That's not the truth for me, right? So for me, high ticket is anything over 1K. And if I'm only working, like, say, 3 to 4 hours a day, then having clients who are paying, say, 1K above for a high value solution, right? That's really important. It's not just that they're sitting there and I just chat to them. They get a ton of value from working with me, from the implementations, from the mentoring, from the guidance, from everything that, everything that I've shared with you on the podcast. Imagine that's like multiplied 100 times when you're working with me, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's in multiplier, or even if you're just doing one of my DIY courses, right? And so for me, that actually has been the backbone of my business. Like, it has allowed me to be able to grow the business, to be able to do the work I love, even whilst I was I was in hospital having babies, right? So as a solopreneur, it's really important to know what your definition of success is, rather. Okay. And so we've gone on this journey. We've been talking about, your message. We've been talking about creating that irresistible offer that your clients just can't wait to say yes to, right? That signature program that is your trademark transformation. Do not underestimate how powerful that is, right? To give you I suppose, use myself as an example. That was something that I decided early on. And I really wanted to kind of set myself apart from everybody else who was doing something similar. Because I thought, okay, well, if I create my own methodology, my own philosophy, then that will give me an edge. And it absolutely has. But what I did was I created programs around it. Then, and I worked with clients. Then I wrote my book. I've got my podcast. But it's all based on my trademark transformation, right? So it is incredible to your business, the way that you run your business model, so what you're offering, what you're selling, your positioning. It has a huge impact. And then we talked about your 24/7 sales team, so using digital assets. And I want to just emphasize this, right? This isn't just about creating assets that are kind of like higgledy-piggledy in your business, right? The way that I look at it is every business needs to have a digital breadcrumb trail. And what that means is, if you think back to Hansel and Gretel, right, that famous, super scary fairy tale around two kids getting dumped in the middle of the forest, right, by the wicked stepmother. It's always a woman, isn't it? Right, by the wicked stepmother, and they make their way back because they first put breadcrumbs and then stones. So that got me into thinking about how it's like this digital breadcrumb trail that you've got. So if somebody discovers you, for example, on social media, and they go, oh, I like this video, or I like this post, whatever it might be. And then they go to your profile and you have a breadcrumb trail. So they click on your profile. There's links that they can go to. They can sign up for your freebie, your lead magnet. They can listen to your podcast. They can buy your book. They can book a call, right? All of those things are your breadcrumbs, right? Now imagine if someone goes to your profile, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, it doesn't matter, right? They go on to that profile and there's nothing there, right? You are working so much harder than you need to be because you're not setting these things up to make life easier for you, to save you a ton of time. Because, let's be honest, if you're like me and you've got other demands on your time, which pretty much everyone has, whether it's kids, whether it's dogs, whether it's elderly parents, whether it's community, whatever it might be, we all have demands on our time, right? And you love what you do, but you also have all these other things that you want to do. So wouldn't it make sense to really spend the time to build the assets, build your digital breadcrumb trail so that you can save time, be way more efficient, increase your positioning, elevate the way that people see you and want to come and work with you. And then you think, oh, wow, this is great. Look at me, I'm making a healthy income. I'm not working a lot of hours at all, right? Because of all the things that Yasmin's been talking about, I now know how to do all of these things in a very streamlined way. And I get to do all the other stuff as well. I get to have my little nap in the afternoon. And I talk about this a lot, right? I am an absolute witch if I don't get my sleep. in the afternoon. And I'm not talking like a long nap. I mean like literally 10-15 minutes. If I just get a little bit of shut eye, I can keep on going until midnight. But if I don't, and this is always happens, right? I know it myself because I get up quite early. It'll be like 7 o'clock in the evening, and I will be either ratty. Actually, yeah, I will just be ratty, right? So all of these things, you can make this happen for you. You can have that slower pace of life. Like I love my slow cooker because I love the idea of, slow. But all of these things helps you to make that happen. Okay. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about streamlining to scale. Now, like I said in the previous episode, when we're talking about scale, we're just talking about whatever that means for you. I'm not saying that you have to go on scale so that you're working with, hundreds of thousands of people. It's up to you, right? You might think, okay, well, if I can work with 5 one-on-one clients, I'm going to create a group program so I can work with 50 clients. I was chatting with a very, very good friend of mine recently, and we were having this conversation, and she was talking to me about her business idea. And we had this conversation, and I said, all right, okay. I said, so that's great. I said, start with the one-to-one. That's what I always recommend. So start with the one-to-one, right? And say you can do like 5 clients an hour each, right? She has a full-time job, so this was going to be something that was going to be on the side. And I said, then what you can do is you could create a workshop where you could invite 10 people and they come and work with you for 90 minutes, for example. Instead of 10 hours, now you're reducing it down to 90 minutes, but you've been able to scale what you're doing. And she just looked at me and she went, you are blowing my mind right now. Maybe you know this already, and that's grand. She didn't. And she was like, oh, that's amazing. So that's what I mean. When you're thinking about scaling, this is what I'm talking about. Okay. So this episode is called Streamline to Scale, Essential Systems Every Solopreneur Needs to Save Time and Reduce Stress. So we're going to be talking about this in terms of what's going to help you save time, right? What's going to help to reduce your workload? What's going to help you to reduce that stress? Because if you're not systematizing, if you feel like, oh, I'm too early to be doing any of this stuff, trust me, you do not want to get to the point where it's like a crunch point in your business where like systematizing and creating any kind of systems is going to be a bigger headache than if you do it right now. Okay. And sometimes that's a lesson that you learn in hindsight, but just kind of planting that seed for you right now. And honestly, what I'm going to be talking about is I'm not talking about complicated systems. I'm not talking about you having to get a software developer in to build a system. Everything I'm going to be talking to you, telling you about is going to be really simple. And also in the episode description, you'll be able to see a link to my tech team. This is kind of like my tech stack. So this is kind of what I use in my business. And you'll see it's actually really, really simple. So let's talk about some of the kind of common challenges that solopreneurs face, right? You've got probably feeling overwhelmed. You probably haven't got a lot of time for the business or even just to get all things done, because remember, you're wearing all the hats. And you're maybe probably working with clunky systems, right? Maybe you're trying to do a little patchwork quilt of all the systems that you've got, right? And this is pretty normal, right? When we start out, we want to keep everything lean. We want our expenses to be very, very lean, right? However, what that means then is that you literally start creating more work for yourself because you have created this patchwork. You're like, oh, I'll go on with this software because it's free or it's super cheap. Oh, but it doesn't talk to this one, so I'm going to need to use the third party. Oh, and it just becomes confusing, right? And that's a big part of your overwhelm as well, because, maybe you have that and you're like, oh my God, this is actually freaking me out. Or maybe you're actually sitting there thinking, you know what? I haven't got anything at all, right? Because that you're overwhelmed and intimidated by all the options out there from a system perspective. So it could be anywhere in that spectrum, right? So what I want to do is I want to talk about how streamlined systems can really free you up and it becomes your solid foundation, right? Remember, earlier on in the messaging episode, we were talking about how important it is to have a message as your strong foundation. Your systems, if you think about it, it's going to be like your walls, right? Your walls, your ceilings. This is the thing that's going to keep your house staying up, right? I haven't spent too much time on that house analogy, so I'm not going to go into that too much. Right. So let's first of all talk about the power of systems for solopreneurs. So why are systems and what do they matter, right? Why do they matter? So really, when you think about systems, you think, okay, there's certain processes that you're doing regularly. They're repeatable. And so you're thinking, I should probably create a system around this. If you imagine, in a school, they have like timetables because they're thinking, well, we've got all these kids, we've got all of these subjects, we need to know how we're going to roll this out. So they have a timetable. If you imagine, if you're a bookkeeper, you have a system for doing the repetitive, couldn't think of the word then, the repetitive tasks, right? So it's just a way for you doing those things, right? So if, say, for example, as a solopreneur, you're thinking, okay, I have a specific routine for what I do on LinkedIn, right? And you create a system around that because you know that when you have a system, it makes things much, much easier for you rather than always flying by the seat of your pants, right? And the truth is that if you ever worked in like corporate or in any kind of other business that's not your own, you'll know that they all had systems, right? They all had a way of, this is how we do things, even in the home, like I have a way of doing breakfast. I have a way of doing my shopping. That's probably the most systematic thing I do is, with my list, with the way that I plan my meal for the menu for the week. Like I'm very systematic because it means that I save a lot of time. I'm not constantly faffing around thinking, what am I going to cook today? I know I have all the ingredients. So it means that I save a lot of money because I'm not wasting food. And that actually is one of my bugbears is wasting food. I love when I come to the end of the week, like on a Friday or Saturday before I do the next weekly shop, I love seeing my fridge empty because I know that everything that I bought in the previous week has been used. We throw very little away, which is really important to me, right? So when you have got a system, right? So it creates a lot of benefits for you. It saves you time, right? And it saves your energy so that you can then, use that in the more creative pursuits that you have, right? It just frees up your time. You've probably heard of the infamous story of how Mark Zuckerberg has the same gray t-shirt, right? Because it reduces executive fatigue, or was it decision-making fatigue, right? Okay, that's one example of it, right? But it just means that it frees up your mental capacity for all the other fun stuff, right? And you get to be more strategic as well. Because when you're always in the weeds, it's really hard to be strategic when you are always in the weeds, right? So it reduces that decision fatigue because you're automating a lot of the repetitive tasks. And it helps you to have a really good client experience. Like even if you've got more people, again, you've got a system. So one of the things that I used to do years ago was when I would get a new one-on-one client, I'd send them this Word document, it's like a form and they have to fill it in. And then, I was like, I'm sure there's a better way of doing this. And then I created a Google form and I was like, oh, that's so much easier. I can access that anywhere. And, I know that sounds like a really simple example. But even if someone now comes and joins my program, I will send them a form. Or if they do an intensive with me, I will send them a form. It's all on Google Docs. That's actually one of the things that I put in my tech stack. You'll be able to grab a copy of that in the description. It just makes my life easier because it's not on my computer's hard drive. It's in the cloud, so I can access it through my phone, my tablet, whatever, right? And here's what I want you to know about this, right? If you keep skipping this part of it, right, especially as a solopreneur, if you keep skipping it and going, I'll get to it when. I'll get to it when I've hit 5K every month. I'll get to it when I've hit 7K every month, right? And you like keep putting it off and you keep procrastinating on it, right? That actually leads to more chaos, right? So you don't want to get to the point where you've hit your 7K and then you're like, oh God, oh, I've got more clients coming and now I need to really ramp this up. But now you're working with your clients and you're feeling a little bit frazzled because you haven't got some of these things in place. And some of these things that are in place are not difficult or time consuming to do, right? They do consume some time, but they are not time consuming, okay? And I don't want you to feel stressed out, right? That's the last thing that I want, is for you to feel stressed out. So it's really, really important that we make sure that we mitigate for that so that that doesn't happen. Okay. So let's talk about some of the essential systems that every solopreneur needs. And especially when you think about what we have done over the last few episodes, these things are going to be really, really important. And you don't have to have all of these. I'm just going to give you some suggestions so that you can think about, well, what fits right for you, what feels good to you, right? So first of all, when we've been talking about digital assets, when we've been talking about any kind of email list or anything like that, what you will need is some kind of a CRM, a customer relationship management system. Used to be called an autoresponder. You're not going to be sending emails through Gmail or Yahoo or Hotmail or whatever, right? You're going to need a dedicated software for this, right? So I use something called Gold Star Pro. That's also on my tech stack, and you'll be able to see a link for that as well. Now, I used Infusionsoft for about 10 years, and then it got super, super expensive. And actually, Gold Star Pro has a lot of functionality that I need, and it's a lot cheaper. But with exceptional support, I will say that, you know, that is actually one of the really good things about it. Now, like in any system, no system is perfect. I will always say that. So I do use some other systems, but just purely because I used to use them before I started with Gold Star Pro. And, you know, sometimes it's an opportunity cost where you think, okay, if I transfer everything, that's going to take up a lot of my time. And you just have to make a decision. And I made a decision. Listen, I'm just going to stick with some of the other things for now. Because really and truly, like, no one system is going to be perfect. And if you're still stuck in indecision around which system to use, then I promise you that is actually costing you more than just taking the leap with something. Like right at the beginning, I started with Aweber, then I moved to Infusionsoft because I got a really good deal. Then I stayed with them because I had a really good deal. And then I was like, okay, no, it's getting too much now. So no one system is going to be perfect. Just like no one VA, virtual assistant, is going to do everything for you, right? Just a little bonus tip in there for you, because if you are going to like outsource some part of your business, maybe you want to get someone to do emails for you, whatever it might be, I tend to see people with this massive long list, and they're like, I want one VA that's going to do all of these things, and I'm only going to pay them, you know, €10 an hour. And you're like, okay, that's not going to happen, right? Just a little hint, and just a little tip on my part, right? Not one system is going to be all bells and whistles, right? You kind of look at it and go, okay, do you know what? This is going to do 80 to 90% of what I need, and this is a good match for now. Don't let indecision stop you from actually making a decision, which kind of sounds crazy, but you know what I mean? Like, don't let that paralysis just stop you, because there's more of an opportunity cost there. You know what? And there was a great line I actually heard recently, and I think this applies to everything, right? And it was about decision making, because sometimes we can be so slow to make a decision because we're so afraid of making the wrong decision, right? So here's what I don't know who was saying this, but it was so good. I'm sorry, I can't credit her. But she said, when you make a decision, like, make a decision and make it right, right? Because we don't live in a parallel universe where you can say, okay, if you had two choices, you go, okay, I'll choose option A and option B, and then I'll be able to see how they both play out. We don't live in that kind of a universe. Yes, let's not talk about parallel universes or any of that kind of stuff, because I do believe they exist, but you're not going to be able to like choose option A and then go, oh, I'll choose option B. Like if you were going to pick, say, between two guys, right, or two women, whatever, right, and you were then, okay, well, I'm going to marry Andrew and then I'll marry Barry. Like, that's not going to happen, right? So when you make a decision, make it right. So when you've made a decision, then go, right, okay, I'm going to make this right. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to commit to it. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you order, I don't know, the chicken Kiev, right? And then whoever you're with orders the fettuccine Alfredo, and you're like, oh, that's so nice. And then you're looking at your chicken Kiev and going, oh, you made a decision, like, make it right. Okay. That's a slight little tangent there. Okay. So what you want is your your CRM is basically going to be where you house all your emails. This is going to be where you can track your leads, nurture your relationships, and manage communication, right? This is really important. You do need to have one of these. Then you might want to have something that's going to be for project management, like organizing your task, like Basecamp or Asana or Trello. I tried a lot of these different tools. It really is about just picking one and going with it. I got to be honest with you, most of the time now for my planning and things like that, I tend to just use Google Docs and Google Sheets. Okay. But they can be really useful, especially if you maybe do have a couple of team members, if you were like outsourcing or anything like that, that can be quite useful. But again, determine what's right for you. What do you actually need? And that can be useful for things like, deliverables, deadlines, that kind of thing. You can also use something like Google Docs or Google Sheets and your calendar to make it easier. But you do need to have some kind of a planning system just so that you stay on track. Because just because you're your own boss, it's really easy. It's really easy to kind of let yourself off the hook, right? So you kind of go, oh, I've got so much freedom. But you still need to get that thing done, right? So it holds you accountable. The second thing, and this is really important because this kind of feeds into everything that we've been talking about, digital assets, is you do need sales and marketing automation, right? So in the previous episode, we were talking about, you get your lead magnet and you've got your welcome sequence and, your weekly newsletters, whatever it is that you're sending out. You need a functionality, a software that's going to have that functionality, right? So for example, Gold Star Pro, if someone signs up for for example, if you signed up for this podcast series, right, you're going to get a series of emails to let you know that here's episode 1, 2, 3, etc. Right? And so if somebody signs up for your lead magnet and you're going to have a welcome sequence of say 5 to 7 emails, you need to be able to have that system ready to do the automation. So you're not sitting there going, well, I sent Yasmin that lead magnet yesterday. So today I need to send her an email, right? That's not going to happen because what you're going to do is you're going to go into your CRM and you're going to write out those emails. You're going to get them scheduled. So you say to the system, right, when Yasmin signs up for this lead magnet or whoever, right, on day 1, they're going to get this email. 4 hours later, they're going to get this email. 3 days later, they're going to get this email. So you schedule it. Remember how I talked about how, if 1,000 people hit your website and they all signed up for your lead magnet, now you've got like 1,000 new leads, right? But if they land on your website and there's nothing there, and if the only thing that you invite them to do is book a call, booking a call is actually quite high risk for your prospect at that stage. They're not sure if they're ready to work with you yet, right? And they need a little bit of warming up. This is where your lead magnet is so powerful. But if you don't have anything and it's just a call, then those 1,000 people are going to land on your website. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to bounce straight back off. Okay. They might hang around and read a couple of blogs or something like that, but there's nothing to kind of hold them and keep them in your orbit. Okay. So that's why you're going to need sales and marketing automation. Gold Star Pro does that within its functionality. So that's email sequences, funnels. If you were looking to create, and don't get scared with the word funnels, it literally is just an experience that people go through, but they don't have to be sleazy or pushy or anything like that. You call them fun funnels. I like to call them a trust funnel because it's just helping you to build trust, because trust is the lubricant in business and in life, really. You can then, when you've got that automation, you can set it, you can forget about it for, relatively, because you kind of just go, right, it's going to work. It's magic now. And that is going to drive your leads. It's going to drive sales, all that good stuff. Okay. Scheduling and time management systems. You're going to need something like that. You're definitely going to need something for people to be able to book in with you, like an online diary. Years ago, I worked with a wonderful client. It was actually a product-based business, and she was making lingerie for brides, so very high end. And one of the things that she was really struggling with, like incredibly struggling with, was she was talking about the fact that she'd get people kind of saying that they wanted to come and talk to her about it. And there was an awful lot of toing and froing with emails, even just to organize a call. Can you do Thursday at 11? No, I can't do that. Can you do 2 o'clock? No, I can't do that. You can imagine, right? And I said, right, we're going to get a lot better than this. So we set up a system using one of the many schedulers that are out there, like Calendly and Acuity, and oh God, I can't think of any other ones, but there's loads of them out there, right? We set it up and you determine what times you're going to be available for a call, right? So I can put in and say, okay, hey, it's going to be from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. every day, or 4 till 5 p.m., whatever it might be. So you're determining, and then you send the link. You can have a little form that gives you the information, and this is what we did with Mary. And so they give you the information, right? And you've scheduled a call. Honest to God, that one thing that we set up for her saved her on average 10 hours a week. 10 hours. And it was so simple. It was so simple. And she was like, oh my God, my life has forever changed from that one tiny little system. Okay. So you must have something like that, okay? Especially if you're going to be doing sales calls. And I know there's a lot of coaches and mentors out there going, I don't do sales calls. Well, do you know what? Like, having a conversation with somebody is not a hardship, right? And so if you have got this on your system, if you're inviting people to come and book a call with you, great, right? Use a system like Acuity or Calendly to automate that. You decide, so it's a great way of boundary setting, because you can say, well, actually, I don't do calls at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I will be having my nap at that time, right? So very rarely will you see in my calendar 3 o'clock. I do them in the morning. I do them early lunchtime, and then maybe around 4 o'clock. That's just because it fits in around with the kids, right? And sometimes in the evenings. But 3 o'clock is not going to be an option on my calendar, okay? You might also want to have financial and tracking reporting systems. That's entirely up to you. You might just use an Excel spreadsheet, or you might use something like Xero, QuickBooks, Wave, that kind of thing, right? That does help when you're like coming to do your accounts and things like that. But again, you can make a decision about what is going to be right for your business. You probably want some kind of a centralized database for your digital asset. So, when someone signs up for your lead magnet, say it's a PDF guide, right? You're not going to send that as an attachment. You're going to send it as a link. So that link for your PDF guide has got to be in something like a Dropbox or an Amazon storage, right? So that somebody clicks on the link, it sits in that database and they can access it, right? If this isn't making sense, don't worry. Like, this is really, really just the basic, simple stuff. And if you want guidance, if you want help on how to implement everything that we've been talking about in the podcast series, all the way from your message to your signature program to creating those digital assets, that's going to give you so much freedom and make it so much easier for you to be able to attract those high value clients, then definitely book a clarity call with me and let's talk about what's the right solution for you, right? Because I'm not going to just assume that everyone should come and do one-to-one with me or everyone should be in multiplier. I am very happy to have a conversation with you and help you see what is the right next best step for you. So book a clarity call. More than happy to have a conversation with you. Okay. So here's why streamlining is so important, right? So here's what I call the principles of streamlining, right? You want to keep it simple, right? You don't want to have so many systems that now you're overwhelmed with all the systems that you have, right? So you want to focus on tools and processes that align with your business model. When you look at my tech stack, which is the free guide in the description, you'll see that there's not that many things, right? And you'll also see how much the cost of it is per month, right? Now, imagine if I was a brick and mortar business, right? My overheads would be considerably higher than what my business actually does have, right? So which means that my profit margin is so much higher, which is always important, right? Automation where it counts, that's important now. I don't want you to think oh, I'm just going to automate everything, right? Because people, especially kind of going forward, when you see the rise of AI and all that kind of stuff, people want a more personal touch. They want to know that they're talking to a real human being. You ever see any of those AI videos? They're so weird looking and you can tell, but then there's some that are super creepy because they're so realistic, right? people want that personal touch. So you don't want it to be so much automation that you kind of remove yourself from it. You can remove like 70% of you from the process, but you still want to have that personal touch, which is why, if you're doing live masterclasses, that can work really, really well because people are engaging with your energy all the time. So automate where it makes sense, but still keep that human element involved in your business. Documenting your processes is so important. So if you create a series of SOPs in your business, which are standard operating procedures, right? Or standard operating processes, either one, right? So you're basically saying, like, if you take your blog, for example, if you upload a blog every week, you'll have a process. So you say, okay, here's what I do first, and you document that process. So if you do have a VA who helps you in your business, you can just say, this is the process, right? I've done this so often with my VAs over the years where I say, this is the process, and like everything is there. And they go, this is so much easier. Like, rather than me going, oh God, what do I do? And then you're sitting there thinking, oh, I forgot to tell you about this bit. Oh, and I forgot to tell you about this. You're documenting everything. It's going to make your life so much easier. Okay. And also, importantly, think about reviewing what you're using, especially with like subscriptions and things like that. You want to always make sure that you're using your subscriptions carefully, that you're not wasting money on things that you never use. You will review it every quarter just to make sure that they're working for you, they're doing the job rather than actually making more work for you. Okay. So why this is all important, right? As a solopreneur, right? You didn't start your business because you thought, I can't wait to have to be all things to my business, right? So much so that when you go on holidays, you feel like you have to keep looking at your phone. Or if you go, if you're sick and then you're thinking, oh my God, but I've got to do X, Y, and Z, right? Because there are, being a solopreneur is a lonely business. And I want to help you build that business so that it can continue to work for you. Like I remember, this was years ago now, but I remember my little girl, she was probably a year and a half or something, like she's 11 now. So I'm talking a long time ago. But I remember like she got very sick and we were in hospital together for about a week. I actually had one of my best weeks in business, even though I was in hospital with my baby and I was with her all the time. I had my phone, but I was doing very little. I actually had one of my best weeks. And I want you to really take that to heart and think, this is why I'm doing this, so that I can create that freedom, right? I'm not saying that, you're going to just press the button and then suddenly you're going to get clients and sales coming at you, because all of this stuff just takes time, right? I'm so over everyone always going on about like immediate instant results. It just doesn't work that way. And the problem is that there's a lot of people out there who play on that messaging and make you feel like, oh, if it hasn't happened in 24 hours and there's something wrong with you. That's not how it works, right? These things, when something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. Like if your builder came to you and said, I'm going to have a house ready for you by tomorrow morning, and you'd be like, really? Are you sure about that? Right? If he said to you, okay, we can get this built in 3 months, you go, okay, great. Let's talk about what the plan looks like. These things, you want to make sure that you've got a solid foundation. You want to make sure you've got really solid walls, a really good ceiling. You want to have all of this. You're building your infrastructure, right? And this infrastructure has got to be strong, and it's got to hold you and your business so that you can still continue to make money. You can, do the work you love, and it's really going to help you to grow. Okay. So infrastructure is absolutely key, right? Let's go back to that example of the Oprah effect. If you suddenly had 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people hitting your website and you had no back end, right? You already have like missed a huge opportunity. Like even if it's just say 100 people or 1,000 people, right? We won't even go to the 100,000. We'll just say 1,000 people. And that could be the difference between you having the next 6 months fully booked, right? And not, because you capitalized on that. And, if you even took like a 10% conversion rate or even a 1% conversion rate, and imagine you have a package that's 2K, right? And you've got 1,000 people that have all landed, and you kind of think, okay, so 10% would be 100. And then you got 10 as your 1%, right? I hope the maths are right on that. And so you think, okay, I've got 10 potential new clients, and you do maybe a sales call or something. You've got your 2K offer, and you convert, say, 8 of those. That's 16,000. 16,000. Because what you did was you built a back end that would nurture that relationship, that would build trust with that person. Your content was so on point that it was like, oh my God, she's speaking to me, that your messaging was so targeted and resonant and relevant to them that they were like, this is for me, right? Suddenly, now what you've got is you've banked 16K, right? Just as an example, okay? If you feel like, okay, so here are some of the signs that you need to be aware of in order for you to be able to kind of go, right, okay, do you know what? It's time for me to do this, right? If you feel like you're spending so much time in your business and it's unsustainable, you feel like you're the bottleneck, you feel like you're the one that's actually limiting your own growth, then it's time to do this, right? I would also say that if you don't have any digital assets, if you don't have any automations, if you're not building an email list at the very like minimum, right? As the digital economy continues, you're going to find it harder and harder to keep up, right? And I'm not saying that from a place of lack or anything like that. Like I hate all of that nonsense, right? But what I'm saying is put yourself in a really good position, right? Put yourself in a good position where you kind of think, okay, you can have the most minimalist digital assets. You can have a lead magnet. You might have a masterclass. You have a newsletter, right? We're going to keep it really, really simple, but you have something. You have a welcome sequence, right? And here's my next point, and I really want you to take this to heart, okay? Because this is going to make it so much easier for you. You start small. You start small and you build, right? You do not have to do all of this in the next 24 hours, even the next 7 days, or even the next 2 weeks, right? This is the reason why my multiplier program is 12 months. Not because it's going to take you 12 months to do, but I want to give you that space. You can have this done in 90 days. You can have it done in 6 months, right? But life happens, lots of things go on. And so it's about giving you that space, but you know, these are the milestones. Like I give all of my multiplier clients a milestone map so that they know exactly what they're working towards. They're like, okay, I've got this done. I've got this done. I've got this done. So then they're building that system. They're building their magnetic messaging system, which is what I call it. And they know how, like all the pieces, right? And this is it, because, you could be forgiven for thinking when you walk away from this and you're like, oh my God, all these pieces, like what are all the pieces? But it's okay because I tell you what the pieces are. And then you just start building based on all the guides and the templates and everything that I give to you. So it really is kind of like a paint by numbers, but of course it's going to be very relevant to your business and what it is that you do. Okay. Implement one thing at a time. Start small. That's all I'm going to say. It's like start with one and you build on that, right? Okay, so just a quick reminder to grab the tech stack free guide there, because it really gives you an idea as to kind of some of the simple tools that you need that you can absolutely use when you've got a coaching, consulting, expert driven business. Something like Gold Star Pro is an excellent tool for all the functionalities that you need. Like they have done an amazing job over the last number of I haven't even been with them that long, but they've now got webinar functionality in there. They've got quiz functionality. You've got your welcome, all your automations, all your like sequences. You can take payments, you can have courses on there. Like there's a ton of functionality, and it is very, very affordable. And the beauty of it is all in one system. But like I said before, like one system isn't going to necessarily be like that's it. You have to work the system and learn how to optimize it. Okay, so here's what I want you to do, right? Here's your kind of call to action, right? Grab the free guide that's in the link to the episode descriptor, where you can grab the tech stack. And that shows you exactly the tools that I use in my business. And there's probably other random little things that I use, but they're kind of like the main ones. I want you to, I've also linked in the description for Gold Star Pro. If you're interested in finding out more about that system, then click that link. And of course, everything that I've been teaching in this podcast series so far is everything that I teach my clients in my multiplier program and also in my one-to-one. So if you would like to know more information about that, you can click on the link for multiplier, or you can also book a clarity call and we can have a chat about what feels like the next best step for you. Okay. And then I'm so excited because the next episode in this podcast series is all about the solopreneur mindset, right? I have got such an amazing episode for you, right? This is where we're going beyond the strategy and the tactics, and we're going into the energy work. But honestly, right, you do not want to miss this episode because everything that I've been talking about so far, this is going to be the piece that makes it all work for you. And I'm not underestimating or like, no, let me say, well, I can't think of the word. I'm not downplaying this, or I'm not over-egging it this way. Right. Can't even speak anymore. What I'm going to share with you in the next episode can make or break your success, right? I'm not being over dramatic. That's the word I was looking for. I'm not being over dramatic because it can literally make or break your success. And I'll be sharing how this really affected me, and kind of we're going to have an honest conversation about this. Okay. So check out the links in the description. Make sure you go and listen back to the other episodes if you've missed one of those. And I can't wait to see you for the next episode. Take care. Have an amazing day.